Okay, so the Donna Reed Party is a group of people who are moving from Missouri and they wanted to go to California. The thing that's a little bit crazy is they were actually really successful. And so they're like, we've done about everything that we could here. Let's go do another challenge. Let's move to California. So they're like, sweet, let's move to California. So, since they were pretty wealthy, well-to-do, they actually way overpacked. They had a wagon just full of their food and stuff, and then another wagon for them to live in, and it was a double decker wedding wagon, and the door was in the middle of the side. So kind of how you'd enter like a car door. So not the front and the back, but in the middle of the side. They called it the Rolling Palace. It was massive. Okay, so they start going and they get to Fort Bridger and they decide that they're going to take Hastings Cutoff. There's this little note left on the sagebrush from Lansford Hastings that said, don't take this, it's dangerous. And it was kind of half there, half not. They decided they wanted to take it anyways. So they're like, okay, we're going to do this. But the pictures of the canyons that I just showed you were the canyon was incredibly dangerous. So they ended up building the road through Immigration Canyon. It took them over 2 weeks to do it. 2 weeks that they didn't have. It was all of that time, 18 days, 40 miles, that they built this road through the Oquirrh Mountains that put them completely behind schedule. And to top all of it off, most people who made this trip left in mid-April. These guys didn't leave until mid-May. So they're already starting super late into the game, but they decided to go for it anyways. I think honestly, they probably felt a little invincible. Like, we were so successful here. We've got all of our stuff prepped. Let's go. Let's do this. We've got this. They kind of just lost track of time. They didn't realize how long it would take. They didn't realize all the other stuff that would hit them. And they're in a race against winter, is what it comes down to. So there's a giant mountain range on the border of California and Nevada. That mountain range there is called the Sierra Nevadas, and that's what you don't want to get stuck in the winter. So as they're going through, they do this. They have to go through the salt flats. If any of you have been to the salt flats, we talked about it before. It's where they have the land speed record. That's in prime condition. When it gets really, really hot, it gets sticky. It's kind of like the sand where on a beach where the waves come up just a little bit and then kind of retract, how your feet sink into that. But if you go farther back, it doesn't sink in as much. It's kind of like a hard packed surface. So it does that. Salt also dehydrates you. And so as the oxen are walking through, all of the salt is getting up on their legs and is dehydrating them. It's breaking their wagons. It's dehydrating the oxen. There's no water or food to be seen. So they have oxen dying. They also straight up have oxen that go insane from dehydration and just run off and take off and run away. So then they have to just carry what they can. They don't have that double-decker rolling palace anymore. And I didn't tell you this, but inside of that rolling palace, they even brought their piano. So they have to leave behind their double-decker wagon, their piano, anything that they cannot physically carry on their back is left behind. Not only is that going to be clothes and blankets and stuff like that, but it's going to be food and supplies and things that you need to stay alive. So they're not in good shape. That trek across the salt flats has taken them twice as long as what they thought it would. So then they end up having to go through the Nevada desert. It's just a natural part of it. As they go through the Nevada desert, it's not getting much better. The desert isn't known for having a ton of places to feed your oxen or to get water, right? Then finally, they come up to the Sierra Nevadas. By the time they come to the Sierra Nevadas, it's the end of October. Okay, let's talk about winter. Can you guys tell me when it's the first time that snow hits the mountains here in Cache Valley? It's kind of hard to answer because it totally depends. This last year, it was crazy early. Snow came in September, they had snow up there. So by the end of October, they hit the mountains and winter comes early. Winter comes early and it is brutal. Incredibly brutal. So now they have to figure out what to do. They are literally, if it were 3 days ahead, they would have beat the storm and they would have got out just fine. But that's not what happened. They were behind, they were late, they started late, they built the canyon, they got stuck in the salt flats. Everything kind of hit against them during this time. So they get to this spot, they're down by this lake, they're trying to make it on that last uphill push out of the canyon. One more uphill and then it's kind of downhill from there. The storm, this blizzard comes in so incredibly hard and fast that they physically cannot walk up the hill. They can't move. So the reason that they decided to stay is because they couldn't physically get out. They were stuck. So a blizzard comes. They dig in, they make houses, they do the best they can. Another blizzard comes. They have back-to-back blizzards. This ends up being one of the worst winters on record. And it happens to be when these guys are stuck in. So not only are they stuck in there, but they have no way in, no way out. There is some people who know that they're coming, but what can they really do? So it's a really awful situation. So eventually they start to get hungry. Starvation starts to set in. So first of all, obviously you eat the animals, right? You do everything that you possibly can. They would like boil snow with the bones to try and get some flavor out. They were starving though. They were starving. They did everything that they possibly could. Out of the 87 that was there in the party, only 48 made it to California. The reason that this party is so incredibly famous is that some of them got desperate enough that when someone died, they would eat them. They would eat their remains. Cannibalism. They would resort to cannibalism. They were very meticulous. There's actually 3 families who were there, and they would make sure that you didn't have to eat anyone in your own family. There were some people who never did that. There were some people who were like, nope, no way, not going to do it, and they managed to survive. There are some people who did it, and they ended up still not surviving. But there was people who did it. Okay, this doll that you're seeing here, this is from Patty Reed. This was her doll that she packed the entire way. When they're getting rescued, so they ended up getting rescued, a party from Sutter's Fort. You'll hear about Sutter's Fort here in a little bit when we talk about the gold rush. But she ended up packing that in and out. In order for them to get rescued, it took 2 or 3 trips in and back out to get in there because the snow was so incredibly intense. So this was not like a short rescue. Some of the rescues was like, here, I'm here, we're here to rescue you, but I can't take everyone. And so they would take back part, which I think would almost be worse. Leaving the group, being left, knowing that you were going to starve and that they really couldn't give you all that many supplies. So it was incredibly difficult. This last picture that you're seeing up there is, it's a monument that's there for you to see. So when they were making houses and their shelters, they cut off the trees at ground level. When you go back and look at those trees that are set at ground level today, it's taller than a man sitting on a horse. There's a picture of it when they went back that next spring when everything had melted. I'll try and find a picture and stick it up for you. Normally, I have you guys watch the Donner Party documentary. It's a PBS one. If this is anything that is halfway interesting to you, watch it. It's free. You just have to look it up. It's a PBS documentary. It's called The Donner Party. It's not an assignment. You don't have to, but it'll go through and show you exactly all of these things that just played perfect against them so that they were 3 days too late on making it through that canyon. So there's a lot of hardship, a lot of tragedy that come from this, from people moving west, from people taking this really comfortable lifestyle they've come accustomed to and going to where hardly any people go to and live. This is one of those examples. There's a lot of examples of Mormon pioneers, but I feel like sometimes we forget about the non-Mormon pioneers that come through. But since we're in Utah, that is where a lot of our focus is because that's directly who who landed in our state and created our state. So there's definitely pioneers who come through who just bypass Utah and go to California. That's why California becomes a state first. We'll get to that as well. But this is one of those times where it just is not good. Very rarely do people resort to cannibalism. In fact, this is the only pioneer one that we'll talk about that with. But make sure you fill out your notes. This is all we're going to do. You've got 2 days to listen to this lecture and to fill out the notes and to get it submitted. I will open up your next assignment tomorrow as well, but this assignment is not due until tomorrow. If you have any questions, as always, email me, and have fun, be good, and be safe.